What's going on YouTube? Your boy Mustard is back with another banger, and y'all know the deal. Y'all saw my video yesterday. We're going to continue with part 2 of this, and we're going to do one takeaway from every NBA team in the Western Conference. But before we get started, make sure you drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment your opinions on some of these teams. What do you think about them so far in the NBA season? And don't forget to follow me on social media. The links are down below in the description box. But without further ado, let's just kick things off with the first team, and that is the Utah Jazz. Now, if I'm being honest, there's not much to take away from this team, as though you have players like Gobert, who's having a really nice start to the season. Mike Conley is shooting the ball really well. Donovan Mitchell's got off a little bit slow, but he kind of always starts off slow every year. And that leads to my takeaway being that the Jazz look the exact same. And that's not really a knock on them, because they're still a really good team that can dominate the regular season, but we all know come postseason time, it's always the same story with them. And I'm not here to say that it's going to be the same story, as you never know how things are going to pan out every postseason, but hey, they look the same. But moving on to the next team, we have the Golden State Warriors, and my takeaway is that Steve Kerr needs to manage the minutes and rotations a lot better than he's currently doing so. For starters, I understand that Bjelica is not the best defender, but there are a lot of times that the Warriors offense can get very stale without Steph on the court, which is not surprising because Jordan Poole is somewhat inconsistent. And in those moments, I'm wishing they got someone like Bjelica on the court that can run some high post two-man game, which they do whenever he is on the court, but sometimes he isn't. And even in their recent game against the Grizzlies, where Steph Curry was amazing in the first 3 quarters, he's on fire. You take him out the entire 4th quarter until the last 4 minutes. I didn't really understand that decision, and trust me, Curry has to play better in a lot of these 4th quarters that he's been playing pretty ass in, but nonetheless, I would like to see a better rotation from Steve Kerr in a lot of these games. But moving on to the next team, we have the Los Angeles Lakers, and I'm not going to waste too much time because I think a lot of teams know their flaws, and that's they lack consistency. Obviously, defensively, they're not playing it that great right now, and that's a huge reason why they're struggling to beat teams like the fucking Rockets. But offensively, they're also lacking consistency as well, because if you look at a lot of these games, they cannot find a way to all be on the same page on the offensive side of the ball. The recent game against the Rockets, the big three combined for nearly 90 points, but the rest of the bench didn't do much of anything. Then there are some games where Carmelo will go off, but Russell Westbrook or LeBron or Anthony Davis won't play that well. Then there's games like opening night where LeBron and Anthony Davis play well, but Russell Westbrook plays like trash. And I think right now they're going to go through those growing pains as they try to build chemistry. Moving on to the next team, we have the Memphis Grizzlies, and it's pretty simple with this team, and that's that Ja Morant, he might be ascending to MVP caliber already. Now, I will preface my comments by saying Ja started off the season last year, albeit 3 games, in a somewhat similar fashion that he started this season off with, a nice little bang of 30 and 40 piece games. But nonetheless, this year Ja has been amazing. He's one of the league leaders in points in the paint. I actually believe he does lead all players in points in the paint, which is pretty crazy. And even from behind the arc, he is shooting 39% from 3 on nearly 6 attempts a game. Now, I will admit he's not breaking anybody down at the 3-point line and hitting step backs. Teams are still leaving him open. I'll admit that, for real. But at the end of the day, if he's making them now, eventually they're going to have to go out there and guard him, which is going to open up opportunities for the entire team and take his playmaking ability to new heights, because when you can already apply rim pressure and you add a 3-point shot, man, that's a deadly player for real. But moving on to the next team, we have the Dallas Mavericks, and I gotta say, their offense looks horrendous. My God, this is a terrible offense. They are bottom 5 in both points per game and offensive rating. Now, I will admit their defense has been a little bit better, but the offensive struggles are just inexplicable for this roster. Now, to be fair to Jason Kidd, who I'm not really that fond of to begin with, certain guys aren't playing that well, and Porzingis is out right now. And to be real, I don't even blame him for a lot of these issues, even if these guys were healthy, because we all know the front office didn't really do much to change this roster going into the season, as even their one acquisition of Reggie Bullock isn't doing too much right now, as plus he's shooting below league average from 3. Right now it looks like their offense is the same shit as ever, as it's just Luka. Go out there, create your own shot, and when they double you, pass it to someone who's open. And right now a lot of these guys are bricking their shots. Shout out to Kleba and some others, but Tim Hardaway Jr. is not making all his shots. Dorian Finney-Smith isn't shooting that well, I gotta be honest with you. Shout out to Jalen Brunson, he's hooping, but yeah, a lot of these role players, they're not playing that well right now. And it just looks like the Mavericks are in a rinse cycle repeat phase, as they're gonna have a season where Luka's gonna have to carry them, Porzingis is gonna miss about 20 to 30 games, and in the playoffs they're gonna lose once again in the first round. So typical Dallas Mavericks shit. But moving on to the next team, we have the Denver Nuggets, and I'm not gonna spend too much time because I harped on this in a recent video, and that's that MPJ is still playing ass. The man is shooting below 40% from the field still, and below 30% from 3. And on top of that, your defense still sucks. And look, I'm not gonna spend too much time like I said earlier, and MPJ, bro, get that shit together for real. If you want to know my in-depth thoughts, check out my latest video about MPJ's situation with the Nuggets. And before I move on to the next team, I want to say MPJ, if he can't get his shit together, man, that contract is gonna look like one of the worst contracts in the league. But moving on to the next team, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I gotta say that my takeaway is that if they're playoff bound, and I'm kind of stuck in between the middle because right now they are obviously 3-3, they're 500, but they did just lose a really close game to the Denver Nuggets, and they started out 3-1 to be fair. And when you throw in the fact that defensively they've been amazing and offensively are where their struggles lie, I have to say that gives me more confidence in this team because I know offensively they will get their shit together. Cat's been playing the best defense of his career, and Jaden McDaniels has been a huge help for it. I really think the Timberwolves have a chance to be a playoff team, and obviously I mean a bottom half playoff team or a play-in team, and I think all of those situations are realistic if they can keep up this defense. But moving on to the next team, we have the Phoenix Suns, and I don't have too much to say. Obviously certain guys are struggling, Devin Booker isn't shooting that well, but I think a lot of that will pick up throughout the remainder of the season. But my biggest takeaway has to be the storyline of DeAndre Ayton. There's rumors that he may be traded before the deadline. I don't really feed into that. I don't think that's going to happen, but I am still very intrigued to see how this storyline of his contract situation plays itself out by the end of the year. Currently, he's still looking somewhat the same, but I am interested to see if they start feeding him a lot more in the post this year to see if he can really handle that kind of responsibility. But if they don't and they keep him as just some pick and roll big, a lob threat that just defends the rim, it obviously works for their team, but it doesn't work for DeAndre Ayton getting that bag. So that's going to be a pretty interesting storyline throughout the remainder of the year. But moving on to the next team, we have the Sacramento Kings, and my real takeaway is what's up with De'Aaron Fox. Harrison Barnes playing well, he's looking like a superstar damn near, but D Fox, my goodness, he is not playing well at all. Like, I can understand you being in a slump, but this is a different type of slump, I cannot lie to you. The guy is shooting below 40% from the field and nearly 15% from 3 on over 5 attempts a game. It really is insane to think about how bad he's playing right now. Hopefully, like I said, it's just a slump and he can play himself out of this, but man, he ain't looking so hot right now. But speaking of guys playing pretty washed, that brings us to the Portland Trail Blazers and Damian Lillard. We all know Dame's in a huge slump right now, but my goodness, I thought he would have been out of it by now. And obviously it's still early in the season. I'm not saying the Blazers season is over and that Dame is completely washed, but I can't cap, I thought he would have been out of this slump by now. Hell, the perfect game for him to have broken that slump would have been their last game against the Sixers, as without no Tobias Harris and no Joel Embiid, they not only took an L, but Damian Lillard had 20 points on 20 shots. And if you know anything about efficiency, that is not good. So hopefully Dame shoots himself out of this slump because he always starts off seasons a little bit slow, and man, I just need him to play better for real. But moving on to the next team, we have the Los Angeles Clippers, and I won't waste too much of your time. I talked about MVPG on my second channel. If you haven't seen it, make sure you go and check it out because it looks like MVPG is back. But it looks like the supporting cast doesn't want to help him out right now, so that's really my takeaway. PG needs some help. Reggie Jackson, go back to shooting like you were in the playoffs. Nicholas Batum, can you hit a spot up 3 please? And Eric Bledsoe, or should I say smelly Eric Bledsoe, It isn't even the playoffs yet and you're already folding. I gotta say, man, I am not loving what I am seeing from this team right now because my goodness, they are playing so bad around Paul George and he deserves better. But moving on to the next team, we have the San Antonio Spurs, and my guy DeJounte Murray is the story of this team. We all know defensively he's one of the best at his position, even making an all-defensive team in years prior, but offensively he has taken a huge jump. He's averaging 18 points along with 8 assists and 8 rebounds, 2 steals, shooting 44% from the field, 37% from 3, and yeah, the free throw percentage isn't great, but I think he will shoot himself into rhythm at the free throw line and get there a little bit more often with more touches and more opportunities to attack the basket, which I assume will lead to more free throw attempts. The only question really is if the Spurs are going to trade him and get assets to just completely rebuild, or if they're going to keep him as a part of their future, and I think they should keep him for real. He's playing really well right now. But moving on to the next team, we have the Houston Rockets, and I'm not even going to waste too much of your time. They suck, but I'd be too boring of a YouTuber if that was my takeaway, because I think a lot of us knew they were going to suck coming into this season anyway. But my honest takeaway is that they might have to call up John Wall to play point guard because Kevin Porter Jr., yeah, he ain't really working out right now. For starters, he turns the ball over far too much for my liking, and if we're being honest, he plays somewhat similar to Jalen Green as a scorer. So having both of them as your point guard and shooting guard is kind of redundant in a way. But let's move on to the next team, and we have the Oklahoma City Thunder. And look, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I understand your pain because you are going to go through some rough times, my guy. I'm not saying that you should demand a trade because look, it may look bad now, but my guy Josh Giddey, he's there and he's looking pretty decent so far, so that's help right there on the way. And they have a bunch of other draft picks, and y'all are gonna be trash obviously and get a top pick this year. But man, my goodness, it sucks having to watch Shai Gilgeous-Alexander go out there and drop 20 to 30 points on every single night damn near, only for Darius Bazley and Poku to go out there and throw up bricks. But moving on to the next and final team, we have the New Orleans Pelicans, and I won't waste too much time. I actually think the Pelicans are better than their record looks like. They've been playing pretty well, honestly. I just think the issue is that they don't have Zion, and Zion is really my takeaway with this team. Can you get in shape, please? He looks fat. Like honestly, let's just get that out the way. He looks like a fat ass. I understand on every corner in New Orleans you're gonna have some nice ass food, but please hit some more weights instead of more gumbo shops. Because if you end up not reaching your full potential just because you're fat, I have to say you might be the biggest bust in NBA history. But that concludes this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you disagree with anything that I said, let me know down below in the comment section. Follow me on social media. The links are down below in the description box. This is your boy Young Mustard signing out. Y'all stay safe and have a blessed day. Peace.